definitely a bit of a setback. I had like a pretty busy, at least until like the fall season, planned out a lot of shows, a lot of first opportunities like South by Southwest, and playing some shows in the States as well for the first time, which definitely looking forward to doing. So in a way, there's a setback, but the new music is better for it. So
I see you're seeing the silver lining, right? You said, no, this isn't going to stop me. I'm going to find a way to do it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do something. And that is making some more music, which I know we all want from Haviah Mighty, so can't get enough. Shah, what have you been doing since you can't do tours and festivals and things too?
So, yeah, I mean, it did throw off the schedule. Like, I think on Q&A, I discussed before South by, and then I had an 18 city, tour lined up that went through till the start of June. That's, it's a wrap. So that, it's devastating. But then one of the things that I flipped that into was when the realization occurred, it's like, well, yeah, personally or financially, whatever, this is, this hits, I'm not even close to the worst off. So then a lot of right now finding ways to just give back, especially the artist, creative, entrepreneur community, like people who are trying to do it themselves, coming from a disadvantaged place, just putting in some work there is one of the key things. My career popped off in Atlanta, and it was really through the streets and through the clubs, like kind of old school music industry grinding, that my career took off. So I'm not heavy on the internet. And then that's, a weakness, obviously, the way that the world works. Get a glimpse of me, they're like, I want to know more about him. And you go and look at me, there's only, 6, 7, 8 songs up there. It's hard for someone to fall in love with me just off the strength of that one little piece of exposure. Right. So I've definitely been putting out more music, which I've known I needed to do since time, but now I'm actually been doing it.
Well, I mean, you guys have been busy getting interviews, getting recognized. For example, Complex actually recognized both of you. Haviah, your Flower City was named Complex favorite Canadian releases of 2017, and Shah was Trap's newest star at Complex. What sort of impact has press like that done for each of you? If you want to start, Haviah.
Yeah, I mean, press is really good. Press is really important. I think that for me, there's been conversations that I've been able to have with other people based on the press that I've had. It allows you to, I think, expand and extend your network on the back end as well as on the front end. So like where the viewership of that blog gets exposed to you or whatever the content is. And then there's room for like conversations with those people to kind of expand that and create more opportunities. So yeah, it's all part of like, I guess, the strategy. If you're going to release something, you want to ensure that the most amount of people will have access to whatever it is that you're putting out, can support what it is that you have to say, and I guess align with your brand as well. So you can have that, that authentic real world push. And what's really cool about press too, a lot of the press comes naturally. A lot of the press is something that manifests from like the author of the article actually stumbling upon your work. It's funny how much of the press actually happens authentically. Of course, you do still need that strategy behind it to really, guarantee whatever push you're looking for. But I've noticed a lot of the press, like a lot of the complex stuff, I just found, and it was very happy to see that someone took the time to recognize me and then like write about it. So that's really cool.
That's got to be nice when you wake up and check the phone and Complex just did something on me.
They're always, I always feel like a fan of myself reading those things and seeing where did they position me, and and then recognizing
those are those wins you got to celebrate. Those are those little things that you deserve because you put in the work, and that's what comes with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome. And Shah, with Trap's newest star article, and other ones like that too, what's your takeaway from press like that?
I mean, I think the key thing that Haviah said, at least in my experience, is of what counts, where it makes a difference, is the back end. I don't really heavily pursue press, or I often sort of avoid it, but that's sort of my situation in not wanting to bring attention to certain things that I, certain aspects of what I do that, make it so my strategy is not very aggressive and it's not really normal. But I guess where it does count for something tangibly, at least in my experience, at least what I can see is, on the industry side of things, it's like, oh, well, this person said this, it's sort of more legitimizing than say, oh, these people, like fans really rock with them, or they think that it's really dope. Here's something. It sort of makes it like a fact.
Haviah, you've been recognized by Max Martins and Pitchfork for your album 13 Floors. I don't see a lot of Canadian rappers actually getting covered on Pitchfork. So can you maybe like walk us through maybe how that happened, or how artists can kind of aim towards these exposures?
Yeah, that's funny. I was just thinking about that when I'm listening to Shah's answer um, about like the industry side of things and the press, and I was thinking about that as that being one of the more notable ones that kind of just happened for me. It kind of just happened for me. I actually don't know um, the person that wrote it. Um, I remember like when it like my management emailed me like an email of like a breakdown of the rating of my album, and like the fact that that's actually a good rating before I even like got to the website to read it myself. So like it was like one of those like, wow, this is really crazy. Like this just happened. Pitchfork is one of the notable entities
Absolutely.
for acknowledging pieces of work. Um, and so I think to be acknowledged by that platform, to be able to say you have a piece of work that you put out that was rated such and such by such and such entity, like when you put those two things together, there's like a certain thing that we affiliate as like a standard with their ratings. That indicates to me that people that have never heard of me will now allow me to be a part of a conversation that kind of exists based on clout.
Right.
And that's one thing that like when you're a musician, like I'm not chasing clout when I'm creating music. I'm chasing first of all finding myself in the messages, but also like that listenership and like those people that really identify with what it is that I have to say. Um, so when something happens that heightens the platform, especially when it happens authentically, it affiliates you in a positive way to a platform that you didn't pay for or work for. It's just like Polaris. It's just an accolade, and people can refer to the accolade as something that other people of great success or other people that like where they agreed, I guess, with the findings, were able to achieve something. So now the moment you're affiliated with it is like, it's almost like a cosign, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can say that my album has been able to achieve things that I didn't think it would. I definitely don't think I'm as big of an artist as many of the artists that are acknowledged on Pitchfork. So
well,
I'm grateful.
You're humble. You're humble. Because, I mean, it is a big deal. Pitchfork is huge. Speaking of the Polaris Prize, which is huge, congratulations, by the way. I was rooting for my phone when I saw that post on there. Because that's a big deal. It is. You got selected out of a pretty competitive group of talented people. So, you know, is there advice you can give towards artists, especially artists that do write their own music, kind of how they can get on that road towards writing good music like that that's going to get recognized?
I think it's like, for me, I would say maybe the biggest thing is to like not have an ego. I think we all have an ego when it comes to our music. I still do. But the biggest thing that I've like dissipated to grow over the past 4 years, I'm going to say is my ego. I think there were capabilities within me before this record that only came out when this record came out because of the experiences that I had and the fact that I was humbling myself in a way where like I was willing to take so much criticism from my team, and I was willing to take the time to deal with it. Like, cause for me, I was in a rap group called the Sorority at the time that I was writing this record. So I had the luxury of time, much like we all have right now. And I knew I wasn't rushing to put a record out, but I was working towards this record. I was taking my time with it. And the foundation that I was able to create was based so much on authenticity, not industry, not, you know, it was very like the song starting as a song. And then I let months pass before I definitively determined that these songs were ready to go. These songs went through so many revisions, so many necessary changes to make it what it was in the end. And I think a lot of people were in this culture of like, you know, one take Drake, I'm gonna go through the studio and I'm gonna do my one take, I'm gonna knock it out the park. And it's like, yo, if you want to see me do one take Drake, come see me live. I got you. I can perform my verse. Don't worry about that. But when I'm building a record, I'm not focused on building a record in 24 hours. I'm focused on building a record that's going to last more than 24 hours. And I feel like my ego was what had to go for me to do that for 13th Floor. And I was able to just take time with the album. I just took time, and I let the song go through a lot of processes. I let a lot of people's hands touch it. But in the end, I had the final say. I trusted a lot of people to be involved. I trusted the collaborators to do what they did. And I was just critical about, where I wanted it to go. And I was able to kind of create a game plan that worked out. And even with the new music that I'm making right now, like, one of the things I have again is time in this quarantine. And much like the time when I was making the album, I feel like I'm innovative in ways that you only are when you have that time and that space to really like process your thoughts and take a record that's like 8 out of 10 and dissect it to make it 10 out of 10. That's just, to me, that's the biggest thing too. Like, we can knock out a record that's like 6 out of 10 like right away, and it's like, why does it have to be ready right away? Like, let's make this withstand the test of time. Because I can mix, I can master, I can engineer, but I know I'm not amazing at all of these things. So it's like, man, let me do everything that I can do to the capacity I can do it. And then let me pay the right people that understand my vision, believe in my vision, to take this, whatever it is, 7 out of 10, whatever, to whatever I think is the maximum it could be. And that's what I did with that record. So
amazing. Thank you for the insight too. That really helps a lot of artists, newer artists, if you will, that are watching, sometimes they have to do it all, but then like, don't hang on to for longer than you need, right? Like you were just alluding.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need space to let the art be created without the other stuff in the way, is kind of what I'm getting from what you were saying. And that's amazing.
Absolutely.
To hear that.
When you have the ability to grow, a part of growth is understanding, I think, how people can help you grow. And sometimes somebody taking over a task allows you to actually have the time to be better at the thing that you do as your main. So
for artists like you both who are at a higher level now, I'm sure it's sort of reminiscing, from the earlier days, and you're maybe dusting off some of those, skills you weren't using as much. And Shah, I know you broke into the art world in the US with Art Basel, which is a different lane I would have never guessed. Can you quickly kind of break down how that happened?
I guess it started through LA. So I was in LA starting in 2015 for a minute, and it was the street art world that really embraced me. Like before the rap world took me on in LA, it was the street art world. And from there, my interest in the art world grew. And then when I got to Atlanta, I already had sort of a taste for it. So it was something that, like, outside of music, my radar was onto it. For any community that you want to embrace you, that you sort of, at least the way it worked for me, is genuinely being a part of it, right? So I didn't enter the art world with any intention of this leading to more fans or more money or whatever. It was, I was in LA, I didn't know anybody. I wanted some friends, and then, hey, here's this group that's showing me love and showing my music love.
Now, to speak on other things too, Haviah, I saw you on ones2watch.com via Live Nation. That's a big move right there. Can you maybe elaborate on how artists can maybe position themselves to even be recognized by like a big conglomerate like Live Nation?
Yeah, I think the recognition through Live Nation came through my booking agents, which came, that's a cool story actually. So when I put my 5th record out, Flower City, the intention of that record was I want like DIY, do everything I can, put an album out. In order to build myself a team, I was able to do that. But that was the goal that I had. So I put a record out with my own money. I was able to get, a little grant for it from Factor. I had it mixed. I did all this stuff. I thought it was very strong. That was my best at the time. And I at the time I was working at Long and McQuaid. I had a coworker who's one of his good friends was a booking agent.
Oh.
And he was like, yeah. And like, so this is really just like networking. So my coworker was a big fan of what I would do. He would always give me advice. And when his friend became the booking agent of like the hip hop, he became the hip hop agent. So he reached out to my coworker and was like, I'm looking for an act. And he was like, Haviah Mighty all day. And at first the booking agent was kind of like, yeah, she's cool. Like, I need to see more. And he was like, not blown away. So I like sent him the album like Flower City before I put it out, and he was not blown away. And my last attempt was like, yo, just come through to the live show. Like at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna force a relationship with you, but come check it out live. And this is all like siphoned through my coworker who I never met the agent. So anyways, I have my live release party. I don't even know that I've met the guy. The next day, I follow up with him and I'm like, hey, I didn't see you at the party last night. And he was like, yeah, I introduced myself to you twice. I didn't want to bother you. Basically, like, this is very premature, but I want to have a meeting. He was blown away by the release party.
Nice.
He thought it was crazy that I was like DJing for myself. All of this came out of just like someone that I worked with that I knew. He was so enthralled that he wanted to sit down and talk about booking for me. There was never really any contract. He just kind of started booking for me. In fact, the first show he booked for me was Northern Touch Festival.
No way.
Yeah, that was the very first show that I was ever booked through a booking agent. Was the show where I met you.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, right?
You tore that place down, so I can attest to the live performance. So
for me, it was like, oh, this is the first time that I got on a plane to go somewhere, and like that was covered. Plus, there's money, and it was like, you know, not a crazy check, but it was a reality check for me. It was like the change of your career, and so yeah, that for me turned into him introducing me to who is now my manager. My whole team like built out of that, and then that turned into another show, and so. Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, fair to say that there is just a connection element to when people see you and your live show. If you can make good music and make and have a record that, you know, resonates with people, and then they come see you live and they get the same, if not a different, better, more lively, or maybe not even more lively, just a different experience that pulls them in, that conversation that you create out of that. I think most of my opportunities have come from my live show. Like most of them.
So artists that are watching, if you're performing, work on that, polish yourself. It makes big moves. So that's awesome.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? It was the first show I've ever thrown for myself. Like I never really booked for myself. That's the crazy thing. I just kind of got shows. So this was the first time I was like, I'm gonna put on a show, because again, I had goals for the album. So it was like 60 people. It wasn't that crazy, but it was like 60 was the capacity. So it felt right. Exactly. You know what I mean? And like the album was the same album that he'd heard.
Exactly.
But the energy live and like, yeah, it was just something connected. And that's another thing is just sometimes the answer is no based on not seeing the full picture too. You know? And then when you see that full picture, it can resonate in a way. Don't ever feel like if someone saw one thing from you or heard one thing from you that something else can't change their mind.
The first no means no forever, right?
Right.
That's also a good point.
That's amazing. I love those stories like that, because that just proves how important networks are. You know, it can just be a coworker. Like, you just don't ever underestimate networking, getting your name out, finding your team and all that. And because it leads to amazing things like Live Nation booking you for several shows. So there you go there. Shah, I know you performed for Dominican Day Parade. It was this massive 100,000 outdoor event. And then I think also the Super Bowl performance, you going down to the States first, how did that was it a different path, or was it sort of networking, or?
So Super Bowl show, like I said, it came from it was in Atlanta, and Atlanta is the city that got me going. Atlanta is where probably still I have like the deepest fan base in the streets. And in Atlanta, the streets are sort of still the decision makers and then the influencers, right? So it's like different than most cities. So that I think is how Super Bowl happened. And I guess I do have sort of a little bit like I'm a fan of sports, but I wasn't really I ain't really been rocking with the NFL because of the Kaepernick, because like I rock with Kaepernick, right? I did used to fuck with the New Orleans Saints prior to that, so I did have a little bit of involvement in the NFL, but Atlanta was probably what did it for me for Super Bowl. For Dominican Day Parade, so that was probably the biggest performance I've ever had, like 100,000 people. It's a lot, but that was very directly a result of Dominicans with me. So I think I've only, at least in North America, I've only had one big viral moment, which was my song Telemundo, where I'm rapping in like super like gutter Spanish, which is the only Spanish I really know from my Dominican homies, including my longtime engineer, Eddie Nunez. And then from there, so then this video of me in the studio, you know, rapping, and then a bunch of Dominicans in the studio losing their shit when they see me rapping went viral. And then from there, Dominicans just started rocking with me.
Hopefully those that are business minded are taking their notes and you know, just trying to emulate what you guys did, because clearly what you guys are doing is working. You guys are getting more and more press. I mean, Haviah, I even forgot to mention earlier, like 5 Fingers of Death. Like, I saw him online. I was like, ah! I'm like, yes. Like, you know, like, it's not often a Canadian even gets on there, let alone gets on there and destroys it. And, you know, like, when you make all the hosts, that was a big moment. Yeah, when you make all the hosts hype like that, like they don't have to do that, right? They call some people out in the past when they're, you know, slipping, and no, you did nothing but impress. It's amazing. Shah with the Telemundo, you know, viral and things like that. I'm hoping you guys get more opportunities going forward. If there's any viewers who have not heard of you guys yet, check out their music, search both their names, Dave Shah, Haviah Mighty. You will be impressed. I've been a fan since I met her the first festival year back in 2017, meeting Shah last year at the festival. It seems like the festival's really putting me on to these bigger acts I'm getting to know, and I feel blessed for it. Any final quick words from each of you?
I didn't realize until this year, despite, you know, doing Northern Touch last year, that your mission, like, I didn't realize that y'all was a nonprofit, and the mission to help artists that are underserved and genres that are underserved. And then, you know, Q, that since I found that out from you and Shay, that it's like, I've just been all in, and just whatever y'all need, I'm here to help with, I'm here to provide, you know, open doors, whatever, for you guys to help with the objective, and then ultimately to touch artists, because even seeing your enthusiasm right here, how happy you are, I know for my success, and now seeing in real time how happy you are to see Haviah's wins, like, that just touches me, because I know that coming up, the infrastructure just ain't there in Canada like it is in the States, right? So from that perspective, artists just they're not equipped with all the tools that, you know, you need to win. And then you guys being in there to help, you know, make the difference, to help, you know, equal things out. It's real touching. So I'm all the way in with you. Much love to what you're doing. And yeah, whatever it is, I'm rocking with you.
Thank you. And Haviah, do you have any closing out? Let anybody know of anything coming out? You just said you were creating new music. Is there any release dates yet, or is it still a little fresh?
No release dates yet. I would definitely say fresh. I'm not gonna say anything too early. I do still have a couple things coming out to close out the whole process of 13th Floor. So those will be first, and I'll say soon for new music. Yeah, and I just wanted to speak quickly to what Shah was saying as well. You know, as an artist who's had so much, I guess, of their start in the States, and can speak to the experience of what it's like in a sense of such community, especially a place like Atlanta, where I've heard so much about the community, but I'm not there to have experienced it. I'm sure that someone who has experienced that can really see the dichotomy between that sense of community in the States that you recognize as a Canadian is there, and how it sometimes doesn't translate back home. So for that recognition to extend to you guys, Northern Touch, it even further validates to me as a Canadian what it is that you guys do for other Canadian musicians, to have another Canadian who has seen the other side, the side I haven't seen, and really see, you know, the validity of what you guys are doing and how that is benefiting
100%.
musicians, and that nonprofit, you know, aspect as well is huge. So I'm very grateful for what you guys are doing as well. For me, I remember it being, you know, the first new phase of my career meeting with you guys as well. So what you guys are doing is really powerful, really important. You know, represents music in a region that's different from my own as well, but still is Canadian based. And I think it's really important that we have that in all of these different entities, areas, and regions. So yeah, I'm really grateful for what you guys do as well. And really grateful that we were both asked to be a part of this conversation. A lot of times conversations happen that are intended to be helpful and they're not. And this felt like the questions, the way they were geared, it felt like it should hopefully be beneficial to someone who is looking to do things similar to what me and Shah do. So I hope that we've been successful in achieving that.
I think so. I think
Well
so
put.
because, yeah, like I said, the reason for both of you on this segment too is because you both are at a higher level. You've both gotten some breakouts in the States, and that's not easy to do. It doesn't happen that often, and you guys are doing it. So thank you for being able to share your stories. I'm going to end it off here and just reminding everybody who's watching, don't get in a rut. I know times are tough. Talk to your people. Start creating art. Use it as a therapy that it is. Use this time to actually create. And then once this is all over and we're kind of back to whatever normal life, then you'll have a lot of material to open up other doors. Keep networking. Both Shah and Haviah have alluded that networking is so important. So just keep doing that. Keep moving forward. Have a good rest of your week. Peace.
Later. Appreciate you.